Hi and welcome to Best in Tesla. So the truly affordable EV are coming within the next 1 to 2 years, and this will make EV adoption explode even more than what it has already done. It will make the ICE car completely obsolete, way earlier than the legacy automaker thought and are planning for. And Tesla's next generation vehicle will be leading the way in this disruption together with the Chinese OEMs that has already overtaken the old legacy automakers in terms of the capability of producing the software-defined vehicle of the future, long before the legacy automakers can even make a counter move, as their production development cycle is longer than the time they have left before the tipping point of the whole car industry is reached. We are at a point of no return, and the time is running out for the legacy automakers and the ICE car. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So, the Valley of Death is also playing out right now, as I showed in one of my latest news episodes with this chart from the Electric Nick on X about ICE versus EVs in my country. But this is not just my country, this is what is happening in most places, especially here in Europe. Here are just 3 examples from Europe: Denmark, Finland and Austria. And as you can see, ICE has fallen off a cliff and EVs are rising fast, but not as fast as ICE cars are falling. So like I said in one of my videos a couple of years back, where there's a secret pinned up demand for EVs, and JPR007 on X call it the Valley of Death and make this great chart. But it was the same thing we were talking about, that so many people are holding off buying new EVs because they are waiting for them to become a little bit better or a little bit cheaper, but didn't want to buy a new ICE car either because people know they will not be very valuable in only a couple of years when the truly affordable EVs comes out. So they don't buy an EV right now, but they don't buy an ICE car either. But the next car will be an EV. So the demand for ICE cars are simply just disappearing and not coming back, whereas EV sales are just started and are about to explode in maybe 1 to 2 years. It has already kind of exploded in my country because Tesla did make their cars cheaper, so now people could get a very good EV with no compromises for about the same price as other ICE SUVs and station wagons. And that resulted in Tesla becoming the best-selling brand of any kind in my country, and the Model Y became the best-selling car model in our entire history, beating out much smaller and affordable models like the Toyota Corolla or the Volkswagen Up. But the ones that didn't have the budget for the Model Y, even with true cost of ownership taken into calculation, are still waiting for the more affordable EV to come to Europe. But they are almost here, as we do see BYD's Dolphin here, and that only cost a little over $34,000 in my country. I know that can sound a bit expensive for you Americans watching, but this is a pretty decent price for a pretty decent EV here in my country. The Model 3 in my country start about $50,000. Just to give you some context, and the Skoda Fabia, which is a very popular little ICE car, cost around $27,000, just so you have an idea of what a car costs in my country. But with the true cost of ownership, the BYD Dolphin quickly becomes a no-brainer when you're out looking for an affordable car. And the Dolphin does undercut the price of the very popular MG4 that has sold over 80,000 units here in Europe so far this year, with about $9,500. So I think we will see a big uptake of the Dolphin in 2024, as it has not been here for a whole year and people still need to get familiar with the BYD brand here in Europe. But we do have EVs like the Dacia Spring here in Europe that only cost $27,000, so as affordable as the Skoda Fabia on the sticker price. But this is also only meant as a little city car, as the range is only 140 miles and it doesn't charge very fast or have any kind of power or safety, but it is electric and can be used as a little city car. But an EV for only $25,000 that is actually more than just a bad EV for city driving would really be a game changer here in Europe. And BYD's Dolphin is still made in China, so cheap to produce, but still has to be exported to Europe, so that adds a lot of extra cost to the car and of course the import duties as well. But BYD is working on getting their first European factory up and running, so maybe in only a couple of years they will be starting to produce EVs here in Europe and make them even more affordable. So that could really give BYD a big boost in Europe when that happens. And we do see in China, BYD and many of the other EVs are much more affordable compared to what we have to pay for the same car here in Europe. Like the BYD Seal is about 44% cheaper in China than in Europe, and the Tesla Model 3 is about 26% cheaper in China than in Europe. But if we look at the small ICE cars like the Toyota Aygo that you can get here in Europe, well, that is only $2,000 cheaper in China as here in Europe, as it is $21,000 in China and about $23,000 here in Europe. So that is probably also because Toyota produced their cars in Europe, which BYD doesn't. So Tesla does make the Model Y here in Europe, but still import the Model 3 from China, and the Model 3 still have to be the more affordable one of the Model Y and the Model 3. And the Aygo is one of the cheapest little cars you can get in my country, or at least the cheapest Toyota you can get in my country. So as you can see, if we're starting to get EVs for $25,000 in Europe, it will be a game over moment, as it will no longer make any financial sense to buy something like the Toyota Aygo, as it would be about the same sticker price, but true cost of ownership taken into calculation would make the EV the obvious choice. And also, as more people learn that an EV is just a better car, it's much easier to live with. You don't have to go to service check every year and pay for oil filters and so on. The EV is just a much better everyday car than an ICE car, hands down. You might like the noise of an ICE engine and driving around a racetrack, but as Jason from Haggerty also said in his interview with Sandy Monroe, he has so many great ICE cars in his collection that he loves to drive around the racetrack and hear that noise from the engine. But his daily driver is an EV, because as he said, it is just a better car for daily driving. It's full every morning you wake up and there's no service and very little maintenance. It is just a much easier car to live with. EVs are just better cars. Even a petrol head like Jason that loves driving a V8 around the racetrack think it's a better everyday car. So when more of the affordable EVs we already see in China come to Europe, it will be game over. As in China, you can get a decent EV for $10,000 already today. But even if those EVs come to Europe and they will cost $20,000 here in Europe, that will still be a very affordable car here in Europe, as I showed you. And the next gen Tesla, that will be a $25,000 car, will be made both in the US, Europe, China and Mexico to begin with. So this car will be made locally. So I do believe it will be a true $25,000 car everywhere in the world, plus minus a couple of $1,000s. And with Tesla's new production technology that no one else has, as Elon said to Sandy, the production line that they are building right now in the Texas factory with their unboxed production method is the most advanced production system the world has ever seen. And combine that with all the new technology we have seen tested out in the Cybertruck, like steer-by-wire, the gigabit Ethernet, and the 48-volt architecture that all take away about 75% of all the wires and coppers inside the car. And remember, Tesla has shown their next generation motor will not even have rare earth metals in it. So what Tesla is creating is something completely new and special, and very different from what someone like Volkswagen will come out with, for example, as they don't have anything new in that car, like the ID2 for $25,000. That will still be made on Volkswagen expensive and inferior MEB platform. So they might be able to sell a car for $25,000 and keep losses to a minimum, but Tesla will make a car that is so much better on their whole new architecture that it will probably not cost Tesla more than $18,000, maybe $20,000 to build, as we know the cost for Tesla to build the Model 3 thanks to Sandy Munro's teardown. So if Tesla will be able to cut cost in half, we are easily looking at $18,000 in cost of producing the next-gen vehicle. So let's just say $20,000 and sell that one for $25,000. That is an affordable car with a gross margin of 20%. That is something the world has never seen before. The tiny affordable ICE cars of the world today are hardly making any money, but earn everything on car loans and service and repairs. So this is really where Tesla will once again set themselves apart, because as Sandy Munro also explained in the interview he did with Jason, you can't really take an old 12-volt architecture car and make it into a 40-volt architecture car, as everything in the car has to be changed, so all the suppliers have to change all their products as well. So he doesn't think that even Tesla will bring in 48-volt architecture into the Model 3 or Y anytime soon, as those cars and supply chains are set up for the 12-volt architecture. So not even Tesla will be able to make a 40-volt architecture for their old cars before they decide to make it again all from scratch. And the ID2 from Volkswagen, for example, will not be made from scratch. It will be built on the MEB platform, which is a 12-volt architecture, huge wires, slow Ethernet, and so on and so on. It does not stand a chance to get even close to what Tesla will be able to do with their next-gen vehicle, as that will be made from scratch and even be made with a whole new reinventing of how we produce a car, once again from Tesla. Toyota might try to copy Tesla's way of doing things, as they saw how the Model Y was made and called it a work of art, but they will not be able to build anything that will be competitive with Tesla's next generation vehicles that is built with a new production method. It's like when we today look at the Model Y against Mark E. On the surface, it might look very similar, but when Tesla is actually earning a lot of money on selling the Model Y, and Ford is losing a lot of money on selling the Mark E, well, it's kind of hard to even compare Ford's EVs to Tesla's EVs. And the same thing will be true about Tesla's next generation vehicle. It might look like Volkswagen is at the same place as Tesla because they both come out with a $25,000 electric vehicle. But nothing about those two cars is going to be the same, other than they are both cars. Volkswagen will not be able or willing to build it in the millions because it will lose them so much money, whereas Tesla will be spitting them out of the assembly line faster than any other car in history, making Tesla billions and making them into one of the biggest OEMs on the planet. And all the secret pinned up demand for EVs we have been talking about will suddenly be released into the world, and Tesla will take a huge chunk of the Valley of Death market just waiting for something like Tesla's next generation vehicle. Remember how fast the Model Y became the best-selling car of any kind in Europe and even in the world, just because the price came down a bit. Just imagine what kind of demand they will see for a Tesla for $25,000. This will be the tipping point, not just for Tesla to become one of the biggest automakers in the world, but a tipping point for the car industry as a whole, as there will not be anyone with a functional brain that would ever buy an ICE car again, as it would be financial suicide. It will be the niche market, and EVs the majority. And Tesla will not be alone. They will have something special because they are reinventing the whole way we are building a car, but all the Chinese will also come with all their affordable EVs here to Europe. And all this will happen within the next 3 years. And remember, Volkswagen has just told us that they have a production development cycle of 50 months, so more than 4 years, and they hope to get it down to 36 months, so 3 years, by 2028. But all of this, with the Chinese flooding Europe, together with Tesla building a $25,000 car locally in all the major markets around the world, is all going to happen in like 3 to 4 years. So faster than the old guy's production development cycle. So even if they start now with full speed ahead like there's no tomorrow, they can't even come out with a new product in time because the production development cycle is too long, let alone come up with something remotely close to what Tesla will come out with, as the production development cycle will probably be much longer, as they have to learn how to do 48-volt architecture, steer-by-wire, and all the other stuff within their normal production development cycle. It is simply just not feasible for the old guys to move this fast. And that is why within the next 5 years, I predict we will see the old guys fall from grace and see the new kings rise, like Tesla, BYD, Geely, and many other new players. Like we saw in the mobile phone industry, suddenly we have Apple, Google, and Samsung, and the old guys like Nokia, Motorola, BlackBerry, Sony Ericsson all kind of disappeared or became a shadow of themselves. So for some of the old guys to think they have to 2035 or even longer to sell new ICE cars is nothing else but wishful thinking, in my opinion. The next 5 years will be a huge tipping point in the car industry, where ICE cars will no longer make financial sense, and Tesla will reinvent how cars are being built once again. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.